know it's been a little while. I've just been real busy. I was working on my girlfriend's car and stuff a bunch in all my free time. So I haven't been able to get to work on the 914. So I have done a little bit of work off camera, so I'm going to show you guys what I've done real quick. But real quick before I start the video, just wanted to thank you guys for all the support. Almost 300 subscribers, which I know isn't a ton, but I'm still happy with it. Every time one of you guys like or comment on my videos, it just makes my day, so just thought I'd thank you guys for that. Let's check out what I've been doing. So although it doesn't seem like it's coming up quick, I'm going to be done with the entire engine transmission swap here pretty soon. So I started on doing a little body work. This is the deck lid, or the trunk lid, I guess, and it had this on it, which is like a luggage rack, and I hate the look of that thing. So I took it off, I welded up the holes, which are, I think one was right here, there was 4 of them. Welded up all the holes on it, and then I've sanded it down. It needs a little more sanding. It had a bunch of Bondo on it that I didn't realize, and there's a couple of dents in it and stuff. But I need to strip the rest of the paint off this thing and then finish the bodywork on it. I was stripping all the paint because there was a bunch of cracks, and underneath those cracks were like rust spots. So I've gotten rid of all those, but now it's just real uneven because it goes from metal to quite a bit of paint. So I'm just going to strip it completely bare and then redo the body work on that. So that's what I've been doing. There's some beer. It's good stuff. Another thing, this might come to surprise you guys, but if you look under the car, you can see the cradle in there. There's the cradle. Well, there's the one I made in the video all the way over there. So I actually remade this cradle. And I have a few reasons for it. Now, I want this car to be not janky at all. That one, it was perfectly sturdy and it would have done the job just fine, but it wasn't perfectly symmetrical. And I'll show you why. It's really tough to get it to be perfectly symmetrical because if you look at the bottom of the transmission, it's actually not perfectly symmetrical. See the 4 bolts for the transmission mount, they're actually different on either side. So my 2 pieces that went to the transmission mount were asymmetrical, and I hated the way it looked from the back side of the car, from basically this angle. So I remade it. Basically, I have these plates on the transmission now, and this bar, I'm going to have tubes that go up to the plates, like that, and I'll just weld those on. And then, besides that, it's a pretty similar design. Single 90-degree curve rather than 2 bends that were less than 90 degrees. So it's a little more simple, a little more elegant. Looks a lot better from back here, a lot more symmetrical. So I'm happy with it in that regard. Let's see. I think that's mostly everything that I've done. I messed with this rust a little bit more. This is right on that door. And as you see, it's not quite as bad. I thought it was all the way through the metal. It's just starting to pit pretty bad, so that's not quite that bad. Still got to see how bad this is on the fender. Yeah, that's basically all I've done on it for the past week or 2. Is just rebuild that cradle, which took a decent amount of time. I mean, of course, it didn't take me as long as the first time because it was my second go-around. But I think I'm going to build the actual engine and transmission mounts today. I might get to some other stuff, so honestly, I'm filming this video right now, and I'm not sure exactly where it's going to go. I'm just sort of going with the flow, seeing what I want to do today. So, let me see. What do I want to do? I guess I'll do that. I'll start working on that. Start building those the transmission mounts first, and then I'll bolt it all together and build the engine mounts too. Cool. So I'll start doing that. Those should be pretty simple. Just 2 little sections of tube that'll be straight up out of that horizontal tube, and they'll go into the plates that are bolted on the transmission already. So just flat on one side and what is it called? God, I am losing words today. You know what I mean? Cut with a mouth in it for the other tube. Okay, I'm gonna start on that. So guys, I just removed it from the car. It's just tack welded together right now, so I'm gonna weld it together a little bit better because I really don't want it to come apart while I'm working on it. Because then I'm gonna lose all my, basically, I have to put it back in there and then tack weld it back together. It's just a pain in the butt. So I'm going to make sure it's nice and secure together. And then we're going to flip it over. And I've taken all the measurements and stuff so I know how much space I have inside of there when it's bolted in. So I can actually make all the engine and trans mounts with it out of the car. So yeah, I'm just going to basically add a bunch more tack welds on this thing. So based on all the measurements, it looks like I'm only going to have like an inch, basically, spacer in there. Piece of tubing that goes in between this and that. So real small. I mean, no big deal or anything. Basically, because I have 10 inches overall. This is about 8. So I want to give myself a little bit extra room. So if I make it 1, then I'll have an extra inch on the top of the transmission. So I'm going to go cut out some inch-long tubes and notch them, and to get the angles right and see if I can't weld them all together. Remember, kids, always keep your beer with chop sauce, so if you cut your fingers off, you have something to blame it on. So these tubes themselves can't actually only be an inch tall. They need to be an inch from this base piece. So if they were an inch tall, they would end up being shorter than an inch. So yeah, let me just measure that out. Pro tip, don't lose the cap to your Sharpie. I go through markers like crazy because I'm always losing the caps and breaking them. Can't see it. This is so frustrating. Help. Alright, well I guess I'm gonna find that later. Hopefully. Probably not. Probably have to go and buy a new one. I lost my train of thought now. Now what do I gotta do? So the base plates on the transmission, these guys, are actually at an angle. These bolt holes, the bolt hole in the front is a different height than the one in the back. They're about a 5-degree angle, which is significant. I mean, it's there. So I'm going to make sure that I cut these at a 5-degree angle, and I'll mark them with my marker that has no cap on it anymore. But I'll cut them at a 5-degree angle so that it orientates the transmission correctly. So got these marked at the length I need. I'm going to go get a protractor and mark them at the angle. And then I'm just going to cut them, and we should just be able to weld them on. So now I got them all cut and everything at that slight angle. So I'm actually just going to measure how far from the center of the transmission they need to be basically on this bar over here, and then I'm just gonna tack them on there. I'm not even gonna have the transmission there. I'm just gonna do it all on measurements. That way, I know that it'll be perfect in terms of the actual measurements. Because if I measure everything right, then it'll come out right. So I'm just gonna do that. Thought I'd just bring you guys around to see, but that is, I think, about as close as I'm going to get it to perfect. Obviously, the transmission isn't sitting at the correct angle because the engine mounts aren't in either, so there's a gap there. But it should be leaning more flat instead of how it's leaning forward now. But look at that. It's nice and centered between the two posts. Looks good. That's basically exactly what I was looking for. Plenty of clearance underneath. Let's see if I can get a shot of that. Yeah, so there's plenty of clearance in between and underneath. Perfect. That makes me happy. And yeah, that's just how I want it. Cool. So I guess I'm gonna weld these plates onto there. I'm gonna mark where I need to weld them, and then I'm gonna weld them on, and then we can actually get started on the engine mounts themselves. So guys, I came up with this little rig thing, basically so that I can get the angles all right and everything. But I've got it all set up, got it all measured so that it's all square, and I'm just going to start welding these plates that are on the transmission to the cradle itself. So now that I have these in place, I can basically hook it all up to the engine and get those engine mounts started going. So I actually do have the OEM Subaru. Oh, there. No, so OEM Subaru mounts, which I'm going to use. So first I'm going to bolt these to the engine itself, and then we can go from there. Okay guys, so I have the transmission mounted to the engine, and I know this is sort of awkward, considering they're just sitting like on their tops, but you sort of got to deal with what you've got. And this is what I got. So I've got a garage, and I can just throw them on the upside down, and that's how I can build it. So I'm going to remount this to the transmission. I took it off so that I could bolt the transmission to the engine. And I have the engine mounts, the OEM engine mounts mounted. So I need to make some plates that mount them. And then I need to figure out how I can tie this tube to the plate that mounts there. So I'm going to do a little bit of thinking and figuring some stuff out. But I'm going to start building those mounts basically. First step is just to make those plates though, so I can actually start figuring out the complicated stuff. So I'm going to get to that. So I made the plates for the bottoms of the engine mounts, as you can see. I've got the holes in them, and I've got them tightened down on there. And I have also already figured out how I'm going to do it. So basically I'm just going to run a plate perpendicular to this, and then go onto the tube, and then do one on this side of the mount as well. I might end up boxing them in just for extra strength. So basically, I already made them. They're a little bit rough right now, but I'll clean them up. So like that, and this guy like that. It's sort of hard to tell with when I'm doing it one-handed. Here, this might be a little bit easier. So just like that. So as you can see, it's flush against the plate mounted or bolted to the mount, and then it's I need to fix that, make that a little bit prettier, but it's basically just going to cup around the tube like that. And then the inside piece is a little bit simpler, it just has the one angle like that, and then the cup against the tube. So I'm going to clean these up a bit, make them a little bit better, and then start tack welding those on. So with those welded on for the engine mounts, which I'm going to trim them down. Right now they're not trimmed down, so they look weird and asymmetrical, but that's just because they have different lengths and everything. I'll trim them down and buzz them down so they look a little bit better. But now with those done, the cage is basically all done. I'm going to pull it off, weld all the joints completely, I guess trim all this stuff, because like these are unnecessarily big. And I just left them like that just so I had room to work with. Trim everything down and make it look pretty, but yeah, so I'm just going to start welding this thing all together. So guys, here's essentially the final product. Of course, there's a few things like edges of those need to be trimmed, and the edges of those need to be trimmed, and it needs to be painted and everything. But that is it, all welded up. I could use it as it is. It's real tough. I mean, nothing flexes on it at all. It is rigid as it can get, which is perfect. Yeah, finally, a lot of welding and just a lot of work on this thing. Of course, I'm not an expert, so everything takes me a long time. Yeah, now I can bolt it in. I think I'm going to be done for the night just because it's sort of late, and I want to trim this thing up before I actually bolt it into the car. And it's too late to be using the grinder and stuff, so yeah. So, that's the end of this episode, guys. I am filthy as I can get. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you guys enjoyed it down in the comments below. Let me know what else you guys want to see on this car, and I'll film a video of it. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet already. That's going to be it, guys. Thanks for watching so much. Peace.